Block Jung, The Echo of Pain in the Present. It was meant to be a joyful family gathering, a day to celebrate my younger sibling's promotion. Yet, como sempre, a alegria me pareceu luxo inalcançável. Ao entrar na sala, o risinho das conversas e os abraços calorosos fogem da minha percepção. Em meio a risadas e histórias, eu me sentia invisível novamente, um espectro vagando entre as sombras das alcovas familiares. No meio de um brinde, uma piada ingênua e maldosa foi feita sobre a minha vida, sobre como eu deveria ter mais sucesso, como se meus esforços não fossem suficientes. As palavras me atingiram como uma flecha. Lembro-me de olhar para o meu pai, sua expressão apagada e distante, enquanto a crítica cortante da minha mãe ecoava na sala. Ali, naquela atmosfera descontraída, a ferida que sempre esteve apenas latente ressurgiu com força. Fui tomada por uma onda de autodúvida. Meu valor parecia se dissipar em um sopro. Por que a ferida ainda dói? Perguntei-me em silêncio, reaprendendo o que já sabia. Eu estava presa em um ciclo vicioso de busca por aprovação. Com os olhos umedecidos, saí para o quintal, o cheiro de grama cortada trazendo-me um fio de conforto. O céu tinha uma tonalidade cinzenta, refletindo o turbilhão dentro de mim. À medida que a pressão aumentava, cada murmúrio do passado tomando forma, comecei a revisitar memórias de outros dias, se transformando em ecos que não me deixavam em paz. Como uma pequena Juliana, eu havia me esforçado para agradar, para ser suficiente. Agora, aos 34 anos, a sensação de inadequação continuava a me perseguir. Encontrei um canto tranquilo, sentado em um banco de madeira desgastado. À medida que os ventos frescos abraçavam o meu rosto, os pensamentos começaram a fluir livremente. Afinal, eu sempre achara que era uma questão de merecimento. O amor, a aceitação, tudo sempre girava em torno do que eu podia entregar, nunca a quem eu realmente era. O reconhecimento desse ciclo vicioso tirou o fôlego de mim. As lágrimas escaparam, deslizando por minhas bochechas. Eu não tinha que carregar esse fardo sozinha. Naquele momento, lembrei-me de um livro que estava guardado na prateleira. Um tratado sobre a psicologia de Carl Jung. As palavras que li uma vez se tornaram muito mais do que um conceito distante. Elas começavam a ecoar intimamente. O que eu tinha negligenciado era a parte mais escura de mim mesma. A sombra, como Jung chamava. Compreender a sombra significava olhar para a dor que havia ignorado por tanto tempo. Olhar para o que realmente sou, além das críticas e do desejo de ser aceita. O significado daquela dor começou a se transformar de uma simples ferida em um caminho. Uma revelação de que talvez as marcas que carregava pudessem se tornar lanternas, guiando-me para fora da escuridão. Esta ferida é o lugar onde a luz entra, pensei, enquanto um leve sorriso surgia entre as lágrimas. A jornada estava prestes a começar. Era hora de me libertar das correntes invisíveis que me aprisionavam, de desvendar a essência de quem eu realmente sou. A verdade estava a poucos passos de distância, e eu finalmente estava preparada para buscá-la. Block 2, Roots of Pain, Memories and Core Beliefs. As I sat on that worn bench, the weight of my past settled over me like a heavy blanket. Memories began to surface, unearthing the irrational fears and deep-seated beliefs that had been buried for far too long. I closed my eyes, searching the recesses of my mind for the child I once was. Little Juliana, who always felt like an outsider, a mere shadow in the colorful world of my family's expectations. I remembered vividly the day I brought home a trophy from the regional science fair, my heart racing with anticipation. My father had beamed with pride alongside my mother, but the moment of joy was fleeting. Instead of celebrating, my mother focused on how my project could have been better, how other kids had achieved far greater things. "Why can't you be more like your brother?" she had asked, her tone sharp and piercing. In that instant, the elation of triumph evaporated, replaced by an overwhelming sense of inadequacy. I began to question my ability to shine on my own, realizing that my accomplishments would never be enough to earn her unconditional love. With each memory, threads of a narrative wove together, crafting the tapestry of my childhood experiences, a relentless pursuit of approval, constantly striving to meet an unattainable standard. My parents' contrasting styles left me in limbo, my father's passivity failing to counterbalance my mother's criticisms. He would often smile lightly and say, "Don't mind your mom, she just wants the best for you." I wanted to believe he was right, but her conditional love had already taken root in my subconscious. Each "not good enough" left me feeling smaller, and as I grew older, I adopted the beliefs that to be loved meant to be perfect. Sitting in that quiet moment, memories merged with realizations. I began to unpack the limiting beliefs that had formed over the years. I wasn't merely battling feelings of inadequacy, I had built my identity upon them. The invisible one, as I'd come to think of myself, was not a mere title. It was an intricate web of internalized messages, whispering that I must work harder and achieve more to be loved. My mother had painted success with the brush of comparison. It had become a language I could not escape. My heart ached for my younger self, who craved nothing more than acceptance and warmth. I remembered birthdays spent in the company of friends, but feeling alone when my family failed to recognize my efforts. I wished for their validation more than anything, yet their approval always seemed out of reach. I reflected back on summer vacations spent waiting for my mother to look at me. Her laughter shared more often with my sibling, my brother, the golden child, who bore little of the weight that I carried on my shoulders. He was showered with praises while I stood in his shadow, a forgotten echo yearning for the light. In those recollections, the voice of little Juliana cried out, yearning for acknowledgement and love, longing for someone to see her hidden doubts and struggles. I could feel her pain in my chest, sharp and raw, as I thought back to the countless times I tried to mold myself into someone else's expectations. I thought of how I would cry in my room, wishing I could be perfect just for one day, wishing that my achievements would finally earn me a place in my mother's heart. But every time I fell short, her scornful gaze cut deeper, reinforcing the belief that I was unworthy of love. Yet now, sitting quietly with a heart heavy with sorrow and nostalgia, I began to recognize the strength in my vulnerability. Each memory, although painful, was a piece of the puzzle that represented my journey. As I began to connect the dots from my past to my present, I felt a flicker of something new, an ember of compassion blossoming within me. The more I recognized these patterns and core beliefs, the more they transformed from shackles into lessons. I owned every scar, every bruise from those childhood experiences, realizing they had shaped me but would no longer dictate my worth. It aptly began to dawn on me. What if this wounded child I carried was not a relic of shame, but rather a source of profound strength? I needed to bring her to the surface, allow her to express all the emotions I had long suppressed. Through acknowledging my past, I would be able to rewrite the script of my life, one where love is not conditional, where self-acceptance reigns supreme. As the sun began to set, casting golden rays through the trees around me, I took a deep breath. It was time to embrace my history with a new lens, allowing the light to illuminate the darkness. Unraveling the convoluted narratives would be key in my healing. I envisioned how I would speak to little Juliana. I would tell her that it was okay, not only to be imperfect, but to be herself. I would comfort her, promising that I would no longer hide in the shadows, that the real journey was about reclaiming the parts of myself that had long been neglected. With that resolve, I felt a renewed sense of purpose surging within me. It was time to delve deeper. Time to confront the echoes of my past and reshape them into melodies of hope and understanding. Block 3, The Call of Jung, Discovering a New Map. In the weeks that followed my introspective evening, I felt a powerful urge to delve into the world of Jungian psychology. I dusted off the book I had previously set aside, its pages beckoning me with wisdom I now craved. The concept of the shadow resonated within me, illuminating the hidden parts of myself I had long suppressed. I began to understand that the shadow is not merely a source of pain, but also a reservoir of untapped potential, a place where healing resides. One afternoon, nestled in my favorite cafe, I absorbed Jung's insights on projection, and how we often reflect our unmet needs and insecurities onto others. My heart raced as I pieced together how my mother's criticisms had become my inner dialogue. I silently realized that I wasn't just fighting for my worth. I was grappling with external expectations, particularly those of my family that suffocated me. This revelation was both liberating and alarming. If their beliefs shaped my identity, what was left of the authentic Juliana? The excitement ignited within me, awakening a desire to confront the shadows that lingered unacknowledged for too long. I couldn't ignore my inner child anymore. It was time to embrace and nurture that part of me. On my way home that night, I felt a surge of clarity. This journey of healing would require me to integrate all aspects of myself, not just my light. As I sat down to write in my journal, the floodgates opened. I committed my repressed emotions to paper: anger, sadness, confusion, and the yearning for acceptance. I became determined to rewrite my narrative. My younger self needed acknowledgement, and I owed it to her to voice the pain she had long endured. With each journal entry, I unwrapped the limiting beliefs that had held me captive for so long. I wrote letters to little Juliana, assuring her that she was enough just as she was, affirming her worth without any achievements. Emboldened by these reflections, I began to explore the patterns in my family dynamics, recognizing their roots in generational trauma. I realized that my mother's conditional love was a reflection of her own unhealed wounds. This understanding didn't excuse her behavior, but it ignited compassion within me, allowing me to separate her struggles from my self-worth. It was a profound shift, one that opened up a new pathway for healing. Jung's concept of individuation became my guiding star. I pictured myself engaging with my shadow, embracing the aspects of myself I had feared. I closed my eyes each night and envisioned playful interactions with my hidden self, engaging in dialogue where I could both confront and comfort the parts of me that needed love and acceptance. On one particularly transformative evening, I stood before the mirror and made an empowering promise. I will no longer hide from my shadows or allow them to define me. The warmth of resolve wrapped around me, signaling the end of my unconscious resistance. It was a declaration of self-love, and I felt a profound sense of liberation wash over me. This newfound awareness seeped into my work as a social worker, allowing me to connect with clients on a deeper level. For the first time, I began sharing my journey with them. It was daunting, but each time I spoke openly about my struggles, I peeled back another layer of my facade. I realized that my story could be a source of hope for others, a testament that healing is possible. Through this unfolding journey, I began to feel empowered, slowly reclaiming my identity. I acknowledged both my scars and my strengths, reframing the narratives of my past. Instead of viewing my pain as a curse, I recognized it as a powerful impetus for transformation. The calls of Jung had led me toward deeper self-awareness, opening windows of grace and resilience that I had not previously known. As I continued to lean into this light, I knew I was stepping onto a new path, one where the amalgamation of my light and shadow would create a holistic identity. I was ready to embrace both sides of myself, eager to let the healing process illuminate the way forward. Each day, my resolve grew stronger, guiding me toward a future where I could live as my authentic self, the true Juliana, emerging from the depths of her wounds, ready to bask in the light of her own acceptance. Block 4. Inner diving, facing the shadow and complexes. As days turned into weeks, I plunged deeper into the exploration of my psyche, transforming my journey from a passive observation to an active confrontation of my inner shadow. Each evening became a sacred space for introspection, where I allowed myself to feel the emotions long since buried. My journal evolved into a trusted confidant, guiding me through the murky waters of my repressed memories. I began to see that confronting my shadow and the complexes that had ruled my life was integral to my healing process. On one particular evening, I set up a serene environment in my room, surrounding myself with flickering candles that cast soft, warm light. With deep breaths, I closed my eyes and visualized my younger self, the small, timid girl who often felt overlooked and simply craved love. Inviting her to join me, I intended to navigate the shadows together, offering her the warmth and acceptance she had long sought. As memories washed over me, I recalled many instances of my mother's conditional love that had left a significant imprint on my identity. With shocking clarity, I realized that each compliment had been tinged with a disparaging comparison. "You could be more like your brother, Juliana." The depth of this realization struck me. I had internalized these comparisons, leading to a fragmented self-image that continually pitted me against an ideal I could never attain. In those reflective moments, I started writing letters to my younger self, expressions of love and apology for the years of self-criticism I had subjected her to. "Dear Juliana," I wrote, "I'm sorry for believing you had to meet such lofty expectations to be worthy of love. You are perfect, just as you are." Each letter became a cathartic release, a bridge to communicate with that little girl who had been silenced by the weight of others' expectations. As I delved deeper, I began to recognize the familial roles I had assumed: the caretaker, the peacemaker, and the silent observer. These roles transformed into complex identities, each holding me back as I transitioned into adulthood. The caretaker felt compelled to prioritize others, often neglecting her own needs, while the peacemaker sidestepped conflicts, still fearing criticism. The observer continued to hide in the shadows, refusing to let her light shine fully. Family interactions provided fertile ground for testing my newfound understanding. Although I instinctively deferred to my mother's expectations, I felt a shift within myself. I began embracing my voice during conversations, expressing my needs and opinions, initiating small discussions where I tackled subjects that truly mattered to me. One evening during a family dinner, I found myself speaking up. "Mom, I appreciate your perspective, but I feel fulfilled working as a social worker. It's where I feel I can genuinely make a difference." The room fell silent, the usual banter replaced by an unexpected stillness. My heart raced, but as I glanced at my mother, I noticed a hint of acknowledgement in her eyes, a small but significant victory. These moments of assertiveness became more frequent, each act infusing me with a renewed sense of empowerment. My internal dialogue transitioned from one of defeat to one of determination and strength. I began to welcome the uncomfortable emotions, anger, sadness, and confusion, allowing them to manifest as reminders of my full humanity. "I am whole," I whispered to myself one night. "I am enough." With my newfound awareness, the dynamics within my family came into sharper focus. The cycles of criticism and conditional love began to reveal themselves, and I realized they were not solely my burdens to bear, but rather patterns that had persisted through generations. With this understanding blossoming within me, I felt an unexpected wave of compassion toward my family members. I could see them as products of their own unhealed wounds, longing for acknowledgement and healing just as I was. With this awareness birthed the courage to address our family dynamics. As uncomfortable as it felt, I took the initiative to facilitate discussions rooted in emotional openness. I proposed weekly family meetings where we could share feelings candidly. During these meetings, I encouraged my family to express their thoughts and feelings, actively listening as much as speaking. Surprisingly, my mother began to soften. She listened, truly listened, to my experiences in a way I hadn't witnessed before. The defensive barriers that had long hindered our communication started to dissolve. Each discussion felt like a step forward, each shared feeling building a foundation for more authentic connections. One evening, after a particularly fruitful family discussion, I reflected on the incredible progress we had made. My commitment to confronting my shadows and nurturing my inner child had reshaped how I viewed myself and my place within my family. The fear I once felt about expressing my needs was being replaced with a burgeoning authenticity. I began to see my shadow not as a nemesis to be avoided, but as a companion weaving through my experiences, an integral part of my story that had been crying out for attention. This deepening understanding transformed my emotional landscapes. I recognized my pain as a teacher, imparting lessons and prompting growth. With every unlocking of my past, the threads of my new narrative began to intertwine. I transitioned from feeling fractured to reclaiming my identity as whole and complete. The ongoing journey toward understanding myself continued to illuminate truths that had been buried, allowing me to embrace both the light and the shadow within me. As I stepped deeper into this duality, my resolve solidified. I wasn't merely facing my past, I was integrating it, weaving both the pain and the joy into the vibrant tapestry of my existence. With each new revelation, I carved out space for love and acceptance to thrive, both for myself and others. Looking back, I saw how every step of this journey prepared me for a new chapter, a path filled with self-love and autonomy. I had begun to understand what it meant to truly exist without the shackles of others' expectations. Now, it was time for me to embrace this newfound freedom, ready to step into the fullness of who I was meant to be. The true Juliana, emerging from the depths of her wounds. With every breath forward, I carried the light of my past and the promise of a brighter, more authentic future. Block 5. The turning point. Integration and decision for authenticity. As I settled into my new understanding, something profound began to shift within me. I felt a renewed urgency to embrace my authenticity, to integrate the lessons I had learned into every facet of my being. It was not enough to merely recognize my shadows and wounds. I needed to redefine my narrative, stepping away from the roles I had played for so long and forging a new identity grounded in self-acceptance and love. One crisp autumn afternoon, while walking through the vibrant trees of the park, I immersed myself in my thoughts. The colors of the leaves mirrored the transformation unfolding within me. Warm browns, fiery reds, and golden yellows. I pondered a question that had started to brew within. What does it mean to live authentically? What does it look like to fully embrace myself, flaws and all? With each footstep, each crunch of leaves underfoot, I felt the weight of self-doubt lifting, being replaced by clarity and determination. My journey had brought me to this moment, a turning point where I could finally acknowledge that my worth wasn't contingent upon external approval. I realized that the love I had so desperately sought from my family had been within me all along, waiting for me to claim it. That very evening, I sat down with my journal, preparing to outline a vision for my future, a plan for how my life would reflect the authentic Juliana. With a sense of urgency, I began to write, I am worthy, I am enough. My voice matters, my feelings matter. As the words flowed from my pen, there emerged a powerful resolve to prevent the past from dictating my future. I envisioned a version of myself who navigated the world with confidence, not fear. A Juliana who embraced her imperfections and celebrated her unique journey. A significant part of this turning point was recognizing the importance of setting healthy boundaries. My previous patterns often led me to prioritize others' feelings above my own, which contributed to the emotional depletion I had experienced for years. Therefore, I made a conscious decision. I would establish boundaries that honored my needs and well-being without guilt or hesitation. The very next family dinner served as the first test of my new resolve. As we gathered around the table, sharing stories and laughter, I felt the familiar urge to play the role of the pleaser creeping back. However, I took a deep breath, reminding myself of my commitment. It was time for me to speak up about my experiences and needs, an action, so simple yet monumental in the context of my journey. When the conversation turned to future plans, my mother, always keen to express her opinions on how I should navigate my career, suggested again that I consider a more substantial position, one she deemed more successful. In the past, I may have nodded along, suppressing my feelings while trying to meet her expectations. But this time, I felt the fire of my newfound resolve within me. With a steady voice, I responded, Mom, I appreciate your concern, but I want you to know that I find fulfillment in what I'm doing now. My work as a social worker fuels my passion, and I hope you can respect that. The table fell silent, and I could sense everyone processing my words. Instead of retreating as I would have in the past, I maintained eye contact, allowing myself to stay present in the discomfort. To my surprise, my mother didn't respond with criticism. Instead, she paused, her expression softening. Juliana, she said thoughtfully, I didn't realize how much your job meant to you. Thank you for sharing that. It was an unexpected moment of acknowledgement, and I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Setting that boundary marked a significant step in my journey toward authentic living. As the weeks progressed, I continued to assert my identity and needs within my family dynamics. I found myself more willing to express my thoughts, sharing not just my successes, but the struggles and lessons I had learned along the way. I spoke candidly about my journey through therapy and the insights I had gained, hoping to inspire them to reflect on their own experiences. Our family dynamics began to shift as we engaged in deeper conversations, exploring our emotions with vulnerability. I felt a growing sense of connection that I had longed for but could never seem to grasp. With each exchange, I recognized the power of authenticity, not just for myself, but as a catalyst for meaningful relationships. This blossoming connection transcended my family. It rippled into my professional life as well. I began to foster a culture of open dialogue with my clients, encouraging them to share their narratives without judgment. I found that validating their experiences illuminated the path to healing, just as I had illuminated my own through vulnerability. It felt empowering to witness their transformations as they too took steps toward their authentic selves. Despite the progress, moments of doubt still lingered. Occasionally, whispers of inadequacy would creep back in, urging me to question whether I truly deserved love or respect. However, I had learned to counter those whispers. I reminded myself that setbacks are part of the journey, a chance for growth rather than a reason for defeat. I leaned into nurturing my self-compassion, acknowledging that embracing one's flaws was a courageous act, not a flaw. One evening, I found myself reflecting on a personal mantra. Love is not earned. It simply is. I began to internalize this truth, reiterating it whenever I felt the sting of self-doubt. I celebrated my achievements, big and small, while also honoring the lessons derived from my challenges. Each step forward felt like a reclaiming of my birthright, the right to love and be loved for who I truly am. As the seasons shifted from the vibrant hues of autumn to the cooler days of winter, I felt a new sense of calm. My vision for the future was clearer. It was a journey filled with purpose and authenticity. I was determined to lead a life that reflected the values I held dear: compassion, courage, and integrity. Embracing my truest self meant that I could inspire others not just through my words, but through my actions, showing them the transformative power of self-acceptance. With every decision I made, I anchored myself in authenticity, allowing others to see the true Juliana, the one molded by her experiences, yet shining brighter with each step toward healing. I was not merely a product of my history. I was an evolving tapestry woven with threads of resilience, strength, and unconditional love. Embracing this new identity, I continued to step forward confidently, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead as I blossomed into the woman I was meant to be. Block 6. The Practice of Freedom. Transformative Actions. As winter enveloped the world outside, my journey of transformation shifted into a phase of tangible action. The lessons I had learned evolved from mere understandings into practices reflecting my commitment to authenticity. It was time to embody the changes I envisioned, turning insights into concrete actions that would reshape my life. I began each day with a morning ritual that set the tone for my intentions. With a steaming cup of herbal tea, I would sit quietly, pen in hand, opening my journal to declare my commitments. Today, I will speak my truth and honor, my feelings. These intentions grounded me, reminding me of my evolving self and my resolve to live authentically. In my role as a social worker, this authenticity transformed the way I interacted with my clients. I moved beyond the traditional professional facade. Sharing moments from my own healing journey fostered deeper connections. You're not alone, I often emphasized, allowing my vulnerability to resonate with their struggles. The atmosphere during sessions shifted. It became a safe space for honest conversation, where experiences and emotions were shared freely. One particular evening, during a group therapy session, I decided to share about the pressure of familial expectations I had once faced. I felt like I had to live up to ideals to be worthy, I began, watching as heads nodded in recognition. As I unveiled my story, I realized how the power of shared vulnerability could create understanding and healing. My bravery encouraged others to reflect on their own challenges, igniting a dynamic of empathy and support. An empowering transformation gradually unfolded within the group. Clients began to share their personal stories, fostering a sense of community grounded in vulnerability. I felt a profound honor to witness this unfolding. It reminded me of the immense power of connection and authenticity. However, even as I progressed, moments of doubt would occasionally seep in. The old patterns of inadequacy whispered, urging me to question whether I truly deserved love and respect. Yet, instead of succumbing to those feelings, I acknowledged them as natural parts of my journey, opportunities for growth rather than signs of failure. I leaned into self-compassion, reminding myself that embracing one's flaws is a brave act of integrity. One evening, while reflecting on a personal mantra, "Love is not earned, it simply is," I felt a wave of clarity wash over me. Repeating this truth allowed me to dismantle the old belief that my worth was contingent on others' approval. I celebrated my milestones, both big and small, and recognized that each step forward reclaimed my birthright, the right to love and be loved as my true self. This commitment to authenticity also aligned me with my creative side. I signed up for a local art class, eager to explore self-expression through painting. Each brushstroke became a meditation, a way to manifest emotions I sometimes struggled to articulate. I vividly remember one sunny afternoon, pouring vibrant colors onto a blank canvas, each hue reflecting my healing journey. As the colors danced on the canvas, I felt as though layers of tension melted away, replaced by a sense of freedom. Alongside my artistic pursuits, I prioritized nurturing relationships that inspired me to grow. Surrounding myself with friends who uplifted me became essential. I opened my heart to these individuals, sharing insights and struggles in a space where we could support each other openly. Together, we created opportunities for vulnerability, exploring our aspirations and encouraging each other's journeys. As I fostered these connections, I recognized the importance of setting boundaries. I became deliberate in saying no to engagements that felt draining and began redirecting conversations with family that circled back to criticism. By doing so, I made room for my own growth, embracing the space to thrive in environments that felt supportive. As winter melted into spring, my sense of renewal bloomed alongside the flowers that began to blossom. Each step I took toward living authentically filled me with vitality and hope. I felt compelled to embrace not only who I was yesterday, but also who I was becoming. Standing outside one sunny afternoon, I inhaled the sweet scent of blooming spring flowers. The warmth of the sun kissed my skin, symbolizing the connection with my true self that had flourished. I felt ready to embrace every opportunity that lay ahead, signifying a future bursting with potential and authenticity. The practice of freedom became my guiding principle. I understood that liberation lay not only in rejecting the constraints of my past, but also in boldly embracing who I was at each moment. I learned that through connecting with my true self, I could inspire others to do the same. With each interaction and decision, I reaffirmed my commitment to authenticity. The true Juliana emerged, the woman molded by her challenges yet empowered to rise above them. My journey had revealed the strength that resided within me. As I took each step forward, I held on to the guiding mantra of my journey. Love is not earned. It simply is. This truth instilled in me a deeper understanding of my worth, grounded firmly in love and acceptance. Embracing this wisdom, I prepared to step confidently into the chapters of my life yet to be written. I was not only healing, but thriving, and each breath became an affirmation of my value. I was Juliana, unfettered and free, ready to take on the world with authenticity and love at the forefront. The journey had shaped me, and now I was poised to soar into a future filled with possibility and joy. Block 7. Blossoming in the New Identity. The Legacy of Healing. As spring unfolded around me, I felt my transformation reach an exciting new stage. This journey was no longer solely about healing. It had blossomed into a legacy I was ready to share, an invitation for others to join me in their own quests for authenticity. Every day was an opportunity to cultivate my freedom, and I was eager to embody my evolving identity. Significant shifts began to manifest in my relationships, especially within my family. Our conversations transformed from superficial exchanges to deeper, more supportive dialogues. No longer did I feel compelled to suppress my truth under the weight of others' expectations. During one family gathering, when my mother expressed concerns about my career path, I took a deep breath and spoke calmly about my fulfillment as a social worker. "Mom, I find joy in my work," I asserted, noticing the momentary pause as she processed my words. What followed was heartening. Rather than criticism, she offered understanding. This subtle yet profound shift in our dynamic made me realize that my healing wasn't just beneficial for me. It invited my family to explore their own vulnerabilities and growth. My professional life also took on a new light as I shared my experiences and insights with clients. Instead of adhering to an overly polished persona, I began weaving personal stories into our sessions. "You're not alone in this," I would reassure them, invoking the connection formed through our shared battles. My honesty resonated deeply, fostering a safe space where others felt empowered to confront their own challenges. During one powerful group therapy session, I shared my journey with familial expectations, allowing others to express their own feelings of pressure. As I opened up, many began to share their stories, and the room filled with a sense of camaraderie that was electric. Watching my clients embrace their vulnerabilities inspired me. The experience underscored the idea that healing is often a collective journey, strengthened through shared truths. Recognizing the importance of creativity, I also began to explore art therapy by encouraging clients to express themselves through painting and writing. Organizing workshops centered around art allowed me to witness transformative moments as they uncovered their emotions visually. Each canvas spoke volumes, encapsulating the stories behind the struggles. I felt immense joy in facilitating this process, fostering connections that transcended words. My relationships with friends grew deeper as well. I made it a point to engage with individuals who uplifted me, celebrating our growth together. We gathered regularly to discuss our aspirations and fears, a supportive community that thrived on vulnerability. With every interaction, I found solace in shared experiences, reinforcing the notion that openness nurtures resilience. Through this period, I learned the profound power of setting boundaries. I recognized when to say no to draining engagements and redirected conversations that returned to unhelpful criticism. This practice allowed me to create a supportive environment conducive to my growth. Families and friends soon began to notice the authenticity that flowed from me. They too were encouraged to embrace their true selves. Standing outside one sunlit afternoon, the scent of blooming flowers saturated the air, and I inhaled deeply. The warmth of the sun kissed my skin, symbolizing my connection to my true essence that had flourished throughout this journey. I felt invigorated and ready to embrace the opportunities that lay ahead, a future alive with potential. My practice of freedom became my guiding principle. I realized that liberation was not only about letting go of the past, but about wholeheartedly embracing who I was becoming each moment. Through my renewed commitment to authenticity, I found courage in expressing the true Juliana, the woman shaped by challenges yet empowered to rise above them. With every step forward, I anchored myself in the mantra of my journey. Love is not earned. It simply is. This mantra grounded my understanding of self-worth, reinforcing that my value was inherent and not contingent upon external validation. Embracing these lessons, I prepared myself to step confidently into the unwritten chapters of my life. I was not just healing, I was thriving. Every breath became an affirmation of my worthiness. I was Juliana, embraced by her journey, ready to face the world with authenticity and love. The path had shaped me, and now I was poised to soar into a future filled with endless possibilities and joy.